Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Debrief on ABC News Live. I'm Kimberly Brooks. Thanks so much for joining us. Severe storms are still damaging the middle of the country, and there's more storms on the way. Plus, Speaker Nancy Pelosi met with congressional Democrats today about impeaching the president. And we have a crazy car chase in L.A. that looks like a scene straight out of a movie. But first, here are your headlines.
McDonald's is now facing 25 sexual harassment lawsuits and complaints filed in cities across the country. Some of the women involved say when they complained, they faced retaliation. Starbucks is facing a lawsuit accusing some New York City locations of putting the health of customers at risk. The class action lawsuit says the shops are using powerful pesticides that should not be around humans or food.
Border Patrol officials are moving migrants out of a processing center in McAllen, Texas, after a large number of people showed flu-like symptoms. It's the same area where a 16-year-old boy recently died. Lyft is now rolling out a new feature for its ride-sharing app to help keep people safe.
Lyft is adding new features to its app to help riders make sure they're getting into the correct vehicle. The driver's license plate information will be larger, and passengers will be able to access 911 from inside the app. Lyft will also now require feedback from a rider when they give a driver fewer than 4 stars. Also new, voluntary training on how to prevent sexual harassment. It's being offered to drivers and riders.
The matchup for hockey's greatest prize is set. The St. Louis Blues will play the Boston Bruins for the Stanley Cup. The Blues advanced to the Stanley Cup for the first time since 1970 after they beat the Sharks last night. During that series, 49 years ago, the Blues lost to the Bruins in 4 games. St. Louis has never won the Stanley Cup. The Bruins won the Cup 8 years ago.
We begin with weather. In just 2 days, this severe storm system has brought hail and damaging winds in the middle of the country, even 20 inches of snow in Colorado and more flooding on the way. So I want to go to Rob Marciano, who's in El Reno, Oklahoma, with more details. Rob?
Hello to you, Kimberly. What you're seeing behind me is not a lake. It shouldn't be here. This is a flooded field, and this scene is replicated really throughout much of Oklahoma and up through Kansas and Missouri as well. That's a grain facility surrounded by water. Show you our drone shot. This really gives you a good visual of the expanse of this. This isn't the only field that is flooded, and the water this time yesterday was much, much higher. The rain's really been stopped for a good 24 hours now, and it's been pretty slow to drain these fields. At one point, Interstate 40 was flooded out not too far from here. You can see the sky. It's actually a decent midday here with the sun peeking through some of those high, thin cirrus clouds, but we do expect more in the way of storms today that potentially could bring tornadoes, especially from Oklahoma City northeast through Tulsa, which really got hit hard the past few days with both tornadoes and flooding, and the threat that extends into Kansas and Missouri this afternoon and tonight, and then tomorrow again we kind of reset with another system dropping in, so more in the way of tornadoes. It's a beautiful day here, at least to start, Kimberly, but the later we get into this afternoon, we're really going to start to see some more storms crank. It's the time of year, but this is a very active pattern even so. Kimberly?
Thank you, Robin. Still wild to see that tornado damage. So while we're at it, let's get a proper national forecast from Ginger Z. Ginger?
Kimberly, thank you. I am back here in New York City because by tomorrow afternoon and evening, we are going to have severe storm possibilities, especially west into Pennsylvania, New Jersey, even parts of Ohio, West Virginia, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia. A lot of folks are going to have to watch out. But let me start you out with what has already been happening. 56 reported tornadoes, including this one here in Kansas. Look at that. That debris starts flying in this tornado. That is a strong one. Thankfully, not a lot of folks live there. We actually called to see how to pronounce it. I think it's Oneida, but there was nowhere to call. So that's how few people live there, thankfully. The same region that's been tortured the last couple of days going to get more severe storms today. From Oklahoma City through Tulsa, El Reno, yes, you're included. Ponca City, yes, you're included. You go up into southwestern Missouri, and you're also all in it. Damaging winds, hail, and tornadoes possible there. But here's the map I was talking about. Albany, Syracuse, Columbus, Ohio, Washington, D.C., northern half of West Virginia, all of Delaware, included in the severe risk Thursday night. So remember, if you have plans Thursday afternoon or evening, you're going to have to be weather aware, especially you're in Harrisburg or Scranton, back to Pittsburgh. We were just talking about Williamsport, all cities that are going to have to be watching out for the possibility of not just damaging winds. So we're talking about the type that takes down trees and power lines, but even a tornado possible. Now, the flooding part of the story, we knew that was going to be a big issue, and boy, it was. Nearly 9 inches of rain just taking towns underwater in Oklahoma. And yes, there's more where that came from, but there's also flood warnings up because some of the rivers and creeks that reached record or were just very high now starting to drain south. And so a lot of places are going to be on the lookout for that type of flooding. How much rain will come? It looks like a lot of it centered, at least on this computer model, on the northern part of Kansas. So you see up to 6 inches there, and then one little strip that kind of slides through central and southwestern Missouri. Now, the other story has been the snow, right? So you go from one day, this is so Denver. If this isn't Denver, I don't know what is. And then having your tree look like that. You know, they had, this is the latest snow they've had in Denver in 10 years. So yes, it happens. They do have snow all the way to June 2nd is the record for how late it can go. But look at Parker, Colorado. This is one of the suburbs southeast of Denver. They were supposed to open this pool this weekend for Memorial Day. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it does warm up, obviously. It already has. Squaw Valley, California, by the way. This is just, this is expected slightly, but it is a lot. This is a lot extra, and they've had such a significant season. So just wanted to leave you with that. And one more look at a new storm that's going to drop even more snow in the Rockies and bring strong winds, large hail, and tornadoes. This is a new one, not the one I showed you before. This is the threat for Thursday from parts of, say, western Oklahoma, including Woodward, down into the Texas Panhandle. Kimberly?
All right, Ginger, almost June and looking like winter. My goodness. All right, guys, we move on to Washington. Speaker Nancy Pelosi was under mounting pressure from House Democrats, so she held a closed-door impeachment meeting today, and she had some strong words for the president afterwards. Check it out.
It was a very positive meeting, a respectful sharing of ideas, and I think a very impressive presentation by our chairs. We do believe that it's important to follow the facts. We believe that no one is above the law, including the President of the United States, and we believe that the President of the United States is engaged in a cover-up, and that was the nature of the meeting.
Now, of course, this comes after Republican Congressman Justin Amash. He broke ranks with the GOP and said President Trump engaged in impeachable conduct. So I want to bring in Mary Bruce, who's on the Hill, and Karen Travers at the White House. Mary, I'll start with you. Do we have any updates on what actually happened in this meeting?
Yeah, well, Kimberly, we've been out speaking with everyone as they left this meeting. And what's interesting is you heard there from Speaker Pelosi saying that she thinks the president is engaging in a cover-up by what Democrats say is his stonewalling of their repeated requests and demands for information. The question, though, is what are they going to do about it? And we now have more than 24 Democrats saying that they believe it is time to move to start impeachment proceedings. Speaker Pelosi disagrees. She feels that they should be staying the course, that they need to continue these investigations. They need to follow the facts, as she always says. And so this was a meeting, a chance for the Democrats who are voicing these concerns and who are raising the specter of impeachment for them to blow off some steam, to make public their concerns, and also a chance for Pelosi to try to get everyone back in line. Now, I just asked her downstairs. I caught her. She was on her way out of the Capitol, making her way up to the White House, and I asked her if she was able to get everyone back on board to stop this bleed, essentially. And she sort of insinuated that, look, there's really nothing to see here. She says that her caucus is doing just fine. But this is a growing number of Democrats, and I think you're going to see that number grow every time you see this president again ignore one of the requests of the committees. We saw this number grow yesterday because the president instructed his former top attorney, Don McGahn, not to show up here. Instead, Democratic lawmakers were facing off at a hearing with an empty chair. And every time the president takes another step to essentially block Democrats in these requests, you're going to see, I think, an increasing number of Democrats here saying, look, it's time to use essentially the biggest tool they have in their toolbox, which is to try and move towards impeachment. But for now, Democratic leaders say it is not, they're not ready to make that move. And it seems that Pelosi is at least trying to give her members an outlet for those concerns. What is really interesting now is that you have, in the middle of this fight, in the middle of this, impeachment conversation, the pressure growing on the speaker, she's now sitting down face to face with the president for what is probably going to be a pretty awkward meeting about infrastructure, Kimberly.
Yeah, a lot of tension there. And Karen, I just want to bring you in. What is the White House strategy for handling all of this impeachment talk?
Kimberly, the White House insists they are cooperating and that any suggestion that they're stonewalling the Democrats' investigations and inquiries and requests for documents and testimony is completely absurd. That's what White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said today about questions that the White House is resisting Democrats on this. She brushed that off entirely and says the White House is cooperating. On the question of impeachment, Sarah Sanders says that the country isn't there and that the Democrats are getting too far ahead and they're trying to redo the Mueller investigation, and that all of this talk of impeachment, again, she's using the word absurd, she says this is not what people out there in the country want Democrats to be focusing on. She says they want to talk about policy, and that's exactly what's going to happen at the White House in just a couple of minutes when the president sits down with congressional Democrats. Of course, as Mary said, it could be very awkward. Looming large over all of this is the talk of impeachment and the fact that the president continues to vow to fight all subpoena requests from congressional Democrats.
Yes, and Mary, just to wrap this up, of course, the meeting is happening in later today, but what are the next steps in this battle?
Well, look, Democrats are continuing to make requests of this administration. We saw just yesterday the latest. They issued a subpoena for the president's former communications director, Hope Hicks. She, of course, was a familiar face by the president's side during the campaign and the first year of his administration. And the big question up here, as they continue to issue these subpoena requests, as they continue to try and get more information out of this White House, everyone then is asking, when are they going to see Robert Mueller, the special counsel himself? Democrats are demanding to talk to him, and we've learned that they're in some negotiations. There's a bit of pushback because Department of Justice officials have offered essentially for Mueller to come up and speak and deliver an opening statement in public, but only to answer questions behind closed doors. Democrats that we've talked with say that's not going to cut it. The question is, where will they land in these negotiations, and when and in what form will we ultimately hear from Mueller himself?
All right, Mary Bruce on the Hill and Karen Travers at the White House, thank you both for joining us. We appreciate that. And guys, on to the craziest high-speed chase I think I've ever seen. Something straight out of a movie last night. A woman with 2 dogs on her lap whipping through the streets of LA in an RV. Absolutely incredible footage there. I want to go to Adrienne Bankert, who's in Los Angeles with more. Adrienne, what in the world was she running from? What happened?
You know what? It's interesting because even the helicopter pilot was saying that this was the strangest police pursuit he'd ever seen in his career. I think a lot of people would join in that sentiment. But we don't exactly know what her motive was in running away. We do know that she was stopped, or there was an attempted stop, but she had a failure to yield. So she did not yield to law enforcement trying to pull her over initially. Yeah, it became a little crazy here on the streets of Los Angeles, specifically the San Fernando Valley. I mean, we're talking about zipping and turning and high speeds over 70 miles per hour on residential streets through some upscale neighborhoods. She drove through Tarzana, Reseda, parts of Woodland Hills, Northridge, and she just kept on driving, eventually striking several vehicles. The CHP, the California Highway Patrol, tells us that she hit a total of 6 vehicles. Wow. And from the helicopter footage, you can see how strong the impact was when she struck those vehicles with this massive 20-foot RV. I mean, imagining how hard it is to navigate that kind of a vehicle in any kind of conditions, let alone at high speeds on surface streets. We do know that 2 people were sent to the hospital with injuries resulting from her hitting them in their vehicles. She also ran into a palm tree. At one point, you saw the side of the RV ripped away because of the impact. She was trying to navigate out of a parking lot where it looked like she hit a dead end, and officers were going to be able to get her under control, but she was able to narrowly escape, taking turns dangerously, hitting poles, hitting cars that were parked. Eventually, she crashes. And one of the most nail-biting moments was when you saw a man crawl out of his vehicle that she had just struck in a driveway, and he is huddled, hurt on the ground, trying to stay in position before officers arrived to administer some medical aid because he was obviously injured. But she bails out of the vehicle on foot, runs up to the gate of a home, and that's when officers are able to take her down, tackling her to the ground. It's just a wild scene, and we see police pursuits and high-speed pursuits all the time in Los Angeles, but this one takes the cake. Kimberly?
Yeah, Adrian, I have to ask you about the dogs. I mean, another shocking moment from this entire chase. Are the dogs jumping out of the front of the RV and just rolling on the ground before it walks off? Were they okay?
Yes, the two dogs are okay. I'm happy to tell you. The dogs were not harmed. It was just bizarre to see these two dogs sitting in her lap. First of all, they are so large, and you can see through the window or the lack of windshield at some point because the windshield was taken off the car, and you saw the dogs sticking their head out of the hole that was left from that windshield being removed. Did not look like lap dogs, first of all. And then you saw one of those animals fall or jump from that moving RV. She seemed to slow down a little bit. At one point, the helicopter pilot actually makes mention that she might be making a U-turn to try to go back and find that animal, but she kept on going. That animal was found, and then the second animal stayed with her the entire time, even running alongside of her when she jumped out on foot.
All right, Adrian, thank you for the updates. Still unbelievable. I don't care how many times you watch it. That is crazy footage. Thank you so much.
It is. It's, you know, I do have to tell you one thing, Kimberly, before we go, so that people at home know, she is now being held on suspicion of several felony charges, including, you mentioned the dogs, animal cruelty.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Just unbelievable. Thank you so much. We appreciate the updates. Yep, wild, guys. And yesterday we told you about a 10-foot great white shark spotted off the coast of Connecticut for the first time. And it seems to swim so fast that it could literally be anywhere, which is kind of scary. So now the residents along the Long Island Sound are making sure they stay safe. So I want to go to Gio Benitez, who's out there with more details. Gio?
Hey there, Kim. Yeah, that great white has so many people asking what's in these waters. Let's get a look now from the sky here through our drone, because that right there, that is why communities are so concerned right now. The beaches up and down the coast this Memorial Day weekend.
This great white shark seen here being tagged by researchers last year is heading toward Massachusetts after swimming near Long Island earlier this week. Now people are wondering how many other sharks are making their way north. Some researchers say the great white population is known to migrate along the south shore of Long Island, even identifying a nursery for newborn and juvenile sharks in the region.
This is a very dynamic time of year because water temperatures will rise and those temperatures are compatible and provide optimal habitat for these sharks.
As great whites make their move, people in northern beach towns are thinking up unique ways to deal with the issue. From physical barriers to shark-repelling technology, even seal contraception to limit the predator's food supply. This as residents urge for more action from officials before the summer starts.
Let's see about the visibility, determine how they behave in our waters, and start moving towards a more sophisticated shark culture.
In Cape Cod, which had a deadly shark attack last year, anxiety is rising.
We expect to see the first sharks probably within a couple weeks, and then really it goes off the charts for the months of July through October, November.
At least one town is holding safety meetings educating the public about how to stop bleeding from shark bites. Harbor masters putting new warning signs, EMT stations, and emergency phones near the shore. But even though shark attacks are extremely rare in towns that depend on summer beachgoers, officials are concerned and say more needs to be done with every option on the table.
People come here to use our beautiful beaches, but they're not if they think that they're going to be slaughtered by a great white shark.
And taking another look through our drone right now, we should tell you that great white nursery that we talked about a little earlier, well, that nursery is actually somewhere between Cape Cod and Cape May, and that really may be one of the reasons why we are seeing these great whites more often up here in the Northeast. Kim, back to you.
All right, thank you, Gio. And guess who's not going to be in that Cape Cod water? All right, ahead of summer, there will most likely be a lot of swimming. And aside from staying away from those great white sharks, I spoke to two people to get some water safety tips. In my opinion, the best two people to speak to. They're two Olympic gold medalists, Cullen Jones and Simone Manuel, who have broken stereotypes as Black people dominating the sport and are now using their skills to help save lives with the Make a Splash initiative. It's a national child-focused water safety campaign which aims to provide an opportunity for every child in America to learn to swim. So take a look. I think if people didn't recognize you two, they would never guess that we were going to be talking about swimming, because you guys have obviously broken a lot of stereotypes about African Americans in this sport. What are you guys promoting today?
Well, you know, I remember the very first one in Houston, but I am so happy to be home in New York to have the 50th tour stop for the Make a Splash initiative. I've got to tell you, doing this for the past 10 years, I would have never expected it to be at this level, to be able to pass the torch, to continue to know that this is in great hands. And, you know, it's really about getting kids to understand how important this is. Because you're absolutely right. We as a culture, unfortunately, we believe ourselves that we don't swim. And it's something that we laugh about, you know, around the dinner table, and something that we almost embrace, but it's killing our children.
What does that feel like? I mean, just knowing how to swim is an accomplishment, in my opinion. But then going on to win Olympic gold, what does that feel like?
It's amazing. I mean, I think when I first learned how to swim, I didn't think that I would make the Olympic team. I just was getting the water to be safe around the water and know how to swim. And so just to know that just beginning with a life skill turned into one of my greatest joys and something that I wake up every day and am so proud to do is something that's super special.
What are the tips? We're approaching a holiday, and even if it wasn't a holiday, you still need to know the safety tips. What are they?
You know, I think the first thing we should start off with is going to usaswimmingfoundation.org. You can sign up your child or another child. Thanks to Phillips 66. They've been an amazing sponsor of this initiative for over 10 years. So you can get your kid or another child that you know lessons for low cost or no cost. We have local partners all over the U.S. So the first thing is to get lessons. Let's do that. And then I guess if I have to take another one, I'll say reach, don't go. Whatever you do, if someone's drowning, do not jump and get to them. You want to ask, first off, ask for someone.
No worries, wasn't going to do that anyway.
Don't go, yes.
Call
first.
Call, don't go.
Call, don't go, yes.
All right, guys, they were amazing. And as they said, you can go to the website to see all the places that children can learn to swim. So very good initiative there. And we're moving on to the 31st annual Fleet Week. It's underway in New York City. The annual parade of ships took over the harbor, kicking off a week of festivities as Marines, sailors, and Coast Guardsmen swarm into the city. The parade takes place along the Hudson River, and it allows people to see the vessels sail from Battery Park all the way to the George Washington Bridge. It's a great tradition, and there's lots of other good events until the 28th. So if you are here in New York City, make sure you check that out. And a treat for you on the briefing room today, which is coming up at 3:30 p.m., an inside look at the Central Intelligence Agency. So Devin Dwyer was there, and he joins us in Washington. Devin, thanks for being with us. Tell us exactly what you saw.
Hey, this is a special one, Kimberly. Thanks for the tease. We got exclusive access inside the CIA headquarters last week out in Langley, Virginia. It's the first time in 15 years, we think, that ABC News was allowed inside there with cameras. Cameras and cell phones are banned, even from the lobby there at CIA. We were allowed in. You see that iconic seal there on the tile and the memorial here, the shots. We went past those security checkpoint turnstiles you see there, back into the hallways of the CIA for a close look at a 20-year tradition at CIA where agents share personal details about themselves. They learn things about each other in a highly secretive workforce culture. We talked to a couple of CIA officers in the clandestine service. In fact, one of them, we couldn't show her face. So you will find out this afternoon, 3:30 Eastern Time, what that tradition is, what these officers are revealing about themselves for the first time. That's at 3:30 Eastern in the briefing room. It's a compelling watch and a very special one, so hope you join us.
We definitely will. Thank you so much, Devin, with that good access. We appreciate that. We're looking forward to it. All right, guys, continue to take care of yourselves. And if you want to stay updated on all of these headlines, you can go to abcnews.com or download the app. I'm Kimberly Brooks, and I'll see you tomorrow.